the power play. You took them, now hold them. You're in the lead. 0 for 1.
Ladies and gents, my name is Xander, aka Deislayers, and in this video, we're going to go ahead and do a side-by-side comparison analysis of the Nightshade versus the Time-Worn Spire versus the Darkest Before pulse rifles, and find out which one of these three monstrosities is truly the best among the three. The main primary reason that we're doing this video as of right now is because later this month, on March 27th, there's going to be a brand new sandbox update, and in that update, pulse rifles are going to get touched, and with this, I believe that any one of these three pulse rifles could become the meta, and thus I really want you guys to know and understand all their strengths and weaknesses so that you guys can go ahead and already annihilate Guardians since you know exactly how they're going to be functioning. In addition to this, my very good friends, The Deadly Neighborhood, Anders, Christopher Jacobs, and Christopher Palmer have all been asking for a video on this exact same topic, comparing some of these pulse rifles, if not all of these pulse rifles, and it's very, very important to know all their strengths and weaknesses, and so that's exactly what we're going to discuss. We're going to look at their TTKs, all their stats, including their base stats, all these weapons perks and their similarities and differences, so that when March 27th comes, you guys are going to be absolutely 110% ready to go. The only thing left to do is to eviscerate that subscribe button, and let's jump right into the video. The very first thing that I love to do whenever I'm doing a versus like this is I love to look at the weapon's optimal headshot TTKs and the body shot TTKs. On top of that, I like to get an overall average of those two things combined, so that regardless of whether or not you're getting headshots or body shots, you still have a very good idea as to approximately how much time it's really going to take to down a Guardian. So as you guys can see right there on the screen, we have the Nightshade, Time-Worn Spire, and Darkest Before with a 1.2, 1.13, and again a 1.13 optimal headshot TTKs. The reason why the Time-Worn Spire and Darkest Before have the exact same stats across the board is because each one of those weapons is in the exact same archetype, whereas the Nightshade is in a little bit lower of a rate of fire, but has a little bit of a higher impact in comparison of that of the Time-Worn Spire and the Darkest Before. The next thing that you really have to note here is these weapons' optimal body shot TTKs, and that's 1.73 in contrast to 1.67. Now as we're looking at these weapons side by side, we can really see that they really don't have that big of an advantage, as their only difference is 0.07 seconds from one weapon into the next. And so regardless of whether or not you're getting headshots or body shots, that 0.07 second difference really isn't going to make that big of a difference as a whole, and so that's something that I really want to point out here. However, something that could be a major factor in this is that the critical damage for the Nightshades at 20 points of damage, whereas the Time-Worn Spire and the Darkest Before are at 18. Now one thing that you're going to see throughout this entire game footage is that, for some reason, both the Time-Worn Spire and the Darkest Before get not just 18 points of damage in the head, but they also contrast to 19, and so it fluctuates from one critical headshot damage to the next. I'm not really sure as to why that is, but just keep in mind that not only are you going to be doing 18 points of damage in the head, but you can also do 19 points of damage with the Time-Worn Spire and the Darkest Before. Taking this into account, there's only 1 point damage difference then from the Nightshade to the Time-Worn Spire and the Darkest Before, and so that's something that's very, very important to note. The same thing can also be said for the body shot damage, as there's only 1 point damage difference from the body shots of the Nightshade and the Time-Worn Spire along with the Darkest Before, and so you can see that even though these weapons have approximately different impacts and rate of fires, I believe that the Time-Worn Spire and the Darkest Before already have an edge up, just because of the very simple fact that they do have a higher rate of fire, and there's only 1 point of damage difference from the Nightshade to the Time-Worn Spire or the Darkest Before. With this being said, the very next thing that we have got to cover is the weapon's intrinsic perks, and that's because the Nightshade actually has an intrinsic perk that increases the weapon's TTK, and that one perk is called KillClip. As we can see right there on the screen, the Nightshade has KillClip, while the Time-Worn Spire has Zen Moment, and the Darkest Before has full auto trigger system. KillClip states that reloading after a kill grants increased damage. In contrast to this, Zen Moment states that causing damage with this weapon increases its stability. Lastly, we had the full auto trigger system trait, and that states that while holding down the trigger, this weapon will fire in full auto. So let me go ahead and take one step back and really dive deep into how KillClip functions for the Nightshade. So as soon as you happen to get one kill and you reload, on the very next kill, that's when KillClip is procced, and with this particular perk, the weapon can do up to 26 points of damage in the head and 18 points of damage in the body. Now, if we were to associate this with an optimal headshot TTK, that is then going to take exactly 8 headshots and then reduces the optimal headshot TTK to 0.93 seconds. Yes, my friends, that's less than 1 second, and it's absolutely spectacular. If we were to look at only body shots and body shots only with KillClip, that means that the weapon's going to take 12 body shots and approximately a 1.47 body shot TTK. Taking this into account and looking once again at the weapon's optimal headshot TTKs and body shot TTKs, whenever the Nightshade has KillClip procced, that means that the Nightshade clearly has a massive distinction and a huge advantage over the Time-Worn Spire and the Darkest of 4, and this is something that really is a huge factor for whether or not you're going to like one weapon over the next. As I mentioned from earlier, the Time-Worn Spire has this wonderful perk called Zen Moment, and the excellent thing about this particular perk is that you automatically gain the effects of the perk as soon as you start to create damage. As soon as you do so, the weapon's stability goes up drastically, and for the Time-Worn Spire, that means that almost every single shot you're getting critical damage, and that's why to me, the Time-Worn Spire is so unbelievably powerful. When you combine this perk with the weapon's other base stats, it really shines, and exactly how that is what we're going to get into in just a second. But the very next thing that I want to discuss is that full auto trigger system that's only found on the Darkest of 4. With this particular perk, all you have to simply do is hold down the trigger and the weapon fires in full auto with absolutely no delay time from one burst into the next. This particular trait is only found on the Darkest of 4, and that's one of the reasons as to why it's so unbelievably easy to use, and also why it's so powerful, because there's no delay time from one burst into the next. So if we were to go ahead and look at all these perks, each one of them is very, very distinct, and they all have their significant advantages in contrast to one to the next. The Nightshade has KillClip, which is clearly going to give it a huge advantage on the second Guardian kill, while the Time-Worn Spire has a perk that's always going to proc, and it procs instantly as soon as you start to get damage. And lastly, you have the Darkest of 4, which has full auto trigger system, allowing the weapon to be fired in full auto, which also implies that there's no delay from one burst into the next. Now that you guys kind of got a sense of these weapons' PvP stats, along with their other intrinsic perks that make them so incredibly powerful, the next thing that I really want to discuss is the weapon's base stats. And so one thing that you really have to know about pulse rifles is that the most important base stats on these weapons is range, stability, aim assistance, and recoil direction. The reason why these 4 stats are so unbelievably important is because range is going to determine as to how far that you can actually damage a Guardian and have less damage fall off. What's going to help this out even more is the weapon stability, as that's then going to allow you to have a smaller bullet spread, which is then going to allow you to hit more headshots. In addition to hitting more headshots, you also need a very good aim assistance along with a recoil direction, and so you can really see as to why all 4 of these base stats are so unbelievably important whenever you're using a pulse rifle. With this in mind, you guys can now see on screen a side-by-side comparison analysis of all the weapons' base stats. Like I said from before, I really want you guys to focus on range, stability, aim assistance, and recoil direction. As we go across the board and look at range, we can see that the Nightshade has 40, 33, and 41 then going from left to right. When we're looking at stability, the Nightshade clearly has the huge advantage here, as it has 59 followed by 54 and then 53, but once again, that stability really isn't that big of a difference when we're going across the board. The next thing that you gotta take a look at is the weapon's aim assistance, and so the Nightshade has 68, followed by 79 and then 75, going from left to right once again. The biggest factor here is the Time-Worn Spire in this case, as it has 79, and that is once again a huge factor as to why this weapon hits so many critical headshots. The next thing that comes closest to this is the Darkest of 4, and once again, there's only a difference of 4 here, and that's why again I believe that the Darkest of 4 also hits so many critical headshots because again it has a very, very high aim assistance. The very last thing that I really want you to note here is the weapon's recoil direction, and as we go from left to right on the screen once again, we see that the Nightshade has 56, followed by the Time-Worn Spire at 60, followed by the Darkest of 4 at 70. When looking at solely recoil direction, the Darkest of 4 obviously has the biggest advantage, and that's because it has the highest base stat here. Now that doesn't mean that the Nightshade nor the Time-Worn Spire are bad, because certainly anything that's above 50 in almost any one of these categories is extremely good. And so regardless of whether or not you're looking at the Nightshade, the Time-Worn Spire, or the Darkest of 4, all these 4 base stats for the range, stability, aim assistance, and recoil direction are simply spectacular across the board regardless of whatever weapon that you're looking at. Something that I personally like to also take a look at when I'm looking at the weapon's base stats is the weapon's handling speed along with their reload speed. If we look at the Nightshade, that has the best handling speed out of any of these pulse rifles at 69, followed by 33 and 34 respectively. The wonderful thing about having a great handling speed is that you can play very, very aggressively, and as all of you know, I love to play aggressive as that's my forte. Now the next thing that's also important here is the weapon's reload speed, and once again, the Nightshade clearly has the biggest advantage here at 62, followed by 37 and 42 respectively. Now the good thing about this reload speed on the Nightshade is that you have to have that high reload speed, and that's because if you don't have a very high reload speed, then you're never ever going to be able to proc reactive reload, and with that perk not being procced, it's almost like the Nightshade is pretty much null and void. Now that you guys understand the weapon's base stats, the next thing that you also understand is the weapon strengths and weaknesses based upon these base stats. So the next thing that we have to discuss is what perks are we going to then utilize in order for us to actually emphasize the weapon's strengths while at the same time contrasting for their weaknesses. The two perks that do these for all the weapons respectively is one that's called lightweight frame, followed by rapid fire frame. The Nightshade has lightweight frame, and it states that this weapon has superb handling, causing you to move faster while this weapon is equipped. In contrast to this, we have the Time Worn Spire and the Darkest of 4, each one of which shares rapid fire frame, and rapid fire frame states that this weapon has deeper ammo reserves and has a slightly faster reload speed when the magazine is empty. In addition to this, each one of these perks actually has a hidden perk, and let me explain exactly what each one does for lightweight frame and the rapid fire frame respectively. Lightweight frame states that it increases your moving speed, but exactly how this is done is via your walking speed, and thus when we're walking, we're actually also strafing in gun battle engagements, and so thus our strafing speed is increased whenever we have on lightweight frame, aka the Nightshade. In contrast to this, the Time Worn Spire and the Darkest of 4 have rapid fire frame, and its hidden perk is reloading faster, and to be more precise, it reloads 50% faster when the magazine is empty, and is the exact same perk as Spray and Play back in the day from Destiny 1. The reason why this is so significant is because both the Time Worn Spire and the Darkest of 4 have a very, very slow reload speed, and so that's exactly what you have to increase this reload speed is using these perks. Lastly, each one of these weapons once again shares another intrinsic perk, or rather I should say a choosable perk, but in this case, instead of having the Time Worn Spire and the Darkest of 4 share a perk, the Nightshade and the Time Worn Spire share a perk, where the Darkest of 4 has two of which you can choose from, and it's also very, very important to note that that's what makes the weapon so unique. As you guys can see right there on the screen, the Nightshade and the Time Worn Spire both share a tactical mag, where the Darkest of 4 has the option to choose slide shot or quick draw. Tactical Mag states that this weapon has multiple tactical improvements, including increased stability, increased reload speed, and increased magazine size. In contrast to this, we have Slide Shot, and Slide Shot states that sliding partially reloads this weapon's magazine while simultaneously boosting the range and stability. The main reason why you want to have on Tactical Mag for both the Time Worn Spire and the Nightshade is because once again, each one of these weapons' reload stats is truly going to benefit from each, and that's because on the Nightshade, you're going to get that incredibly fast reload speed to really boost the chances of proccing KillClip, and that's spectacular in every way, shape, and form. At the exact same time, you're also increasing the weapon's stability, and that is once again exactly what you want to have, because then this allows you to hit more headshots. The same thing can also be said for the Time Worn Spire, as the reload speed is very, very low, and so just in general, you really want to have that increased reload speed as you're going to burn through those bullets very, very fast, since it already has a rate of fire at 540 rounds per minute. Lastly, we have the perks that are found on the Darkest of 4, and the reason why I put on both these perks is because you really can't go wrong with either one of these things, and that's because Slide Shot or Quick Draw is truly going to give you guys huge advantages, and it really just depends on your particular playstyle. All in all, if I had to say which one of these three pulse rifles was truly the best among the three, I would go with one pulse rifle followed by the second, which is a very, very close race, and that's the Darkest of 4 followed by the Time Worn Spire. And third comes the Nightshade, and that's because the Nightshade has on KillClip, and although it may be a very powerful perk, it's something that cannot be relied on a first engagement basis, whereas the Time Worn Spire and the Darkest of 4 have those perks called Full Auto Trigger System, along with Zen Moment, that are procced instantaneously on the first engagement every single time. In addition to this, both the Darkest of 4 and the Time Worn Spire feel to me is that they have more chances and more probability to hit the critical headshots, and that ultimately allows these weapons to get that optimal TTK more frequently. This is something that's very, very underrated and something that not a lot of people look at, but it's the way in which the weapon feels along with the shot rhythm that makes these things so unbelievably powerful. What gives the Darkest Before just a little bit of an edge in comparison to the Time-Worn Spire or the Nightshade is that the Darkest Before has the best base stats out of all three weapons combined. When you couple along with this, the fact that it's got such a very, very unique set of perks that can make it be utilized for a wide variety of playstyles, the Darkest Before is clearly the winner here, but the Time-Worn Spire is almost just as good, and that's because the Time-Worn Spire gets just as many critical headshots whenever you proc Zen Moment in conjunction with Tactical Mag as well as that Hitmark IS sight. Nevertheless, each one of these pulse rifles is an absolute eviscerating machine and is truly going to annihilate, obliterate, and absolutely eradicate just about any guard that they see, making the enemy team a little bit salty. With all this being said, everything that I've stated so far could actually change come March 27th, and we could see an entirely brand new meta where the Darkest Before is the worst and the Nightshade is the best, or the Time-Worn Spire could be the best, and we simply don't know until that's going to happen. But let me know what you guys think about all this stuff down in the comment section below, as I'm very, very intrigued to hear your thoughts. Let me know if you agree with my assessment, and also let me know what kind of comparison analysis that you guys want to see next, as you know that I'm definitely going to keep this series going, since it's not only beneficial for you, but it's just as beneficial for me too. Lastly, go ahead and check out some of my other new videos, as you guys can see right there on the screen. If you happen to enjoy this one, then you're definitely going to enjoy those as well. That's pretty much all I've got for you as of right now. And so as always, Deislayers, great gaming, until next time.